Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beat your price. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beat your price.
1,
2,
3,
4.
Monster movie.
Fun time, go! Monster movie.
Fun time, go. Monster.
Movie.
Fun time.
Go!
Monster movie. Fun time, go.
With Precious D and Honey Bee.
Fun time, go!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, welcome once again to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. 31 Days of the Dead. Day 2. And with me today is our old friend, Bloody Bill, Billy Pond. Welcome back to the show, Billy.
Let's pause for hoopla and applause. Okay, it's over.
Now,
I am old and I am a friend, aren't I?
Billy wanted to discuss Night of the Living Dead, because I think it's one of his favorite movies.
It definitely is. I think it's one of the most important movies.
It is. But before we get into it too much, you've got a crowdfunding project going on right now.
Yeah, and it's killing. Do you notice
Tell
it?
us a
Have you
little
been
bit.
keeping an eye on it? Well,
I've seen your
we're funding
updates on
for
it.
we're funding for Circus of the Dead Part 2. Apparently there's a big cult following on the movie, and the fans are kind of rabid about it. So I want to do this before I get any older, because it's like the older I get, it seems like the more people I know that's passing away quicker and quicker. So I think I need to get this done before something bad happens.
Well, that's as good a reason as any. So where is it funding? Is it Indiegogo?
Indiegogo, yes. It's the first time I tried Indiegogo, and so far so good.
We'll put a link to it in the show notes. But folks, if you are a fan of Circus of the Dead or the original short film Doll Boy that I was in, go over to that link that we'll put it in the notes. Go over there and consider.
We took Doll Boy
helping
out of the
fund this
canon,
movie.
Dominic. We removed it from the canon because of you being in it.
Because of me being in it. Thanks. Well, then that means I
Yeah.
can be in this one, because problem
There
with me
you
being
go.
in this one is I died
I
in
know,
Doll Boy.
I need to do that. Yeah. Well, hell, it's been so long anyway. I don't know that. What was that? You'd look different in 20 years. So
Well, I got a beard now too. Well, we could talk about that
Yeah.
later, what my potential contribution might be. But yeah, people are very excited about it. You've already met your first goal, right? Everything after this is
yeah, we met up. Everything's
gravy.
just gravy here. Honestly, I'm trying to get up over 100,000 is my real goal.
okay. Well, good luck with that, Billy. We'll all be watching that. So yeah, when I gave you a list of potential movies to talk about, of course, you wanted to talk about Night of the Living Dead. So tell us why this one in particular, as if I didn't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very important movie because there would be no modern horror genre, I don't think, without it. And then also, too, like the problems he had with not getting it copyrighted, the title and stuff, and then he lost the rights to the movie as soon as it come out. So, I mean, even to the point of putting a black lead in the 60s in it, the ending kind of pulls the rug out from under your feet. There's a lot of reasons it's important to me, but most importantly, I'm meeting so many younger people into horror that I don't want them to think, the 80s is where it all started. Is kind of, they need to start with that one. I mean, there would honestly be zero zombie movies whatsoever without this one. This basically is the grandfather of all the zombie movies.
Well, if there were, they'd be very different, because we've got
Yeah, they would.
a few older movies on this list. Before this, so nobody actually says the name zombie in the movie. They just
No,
tend
they
to
say
call
ghoul.
them those things. They call them ghouls and they call them those things. But this is the beginning of the modern movie zombie. Before this, zombie movies were very much rooted in real world zombies of mindless slaves that are the product of voodoo, and there's some voodoo master who created the zombies, and
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
they're not they're not hungry, flesh-eating zombies that we think of today.
Yeah.
And those kind of
They're
zombies
like the
came
other ones
from
were like
this
Lee
movie.
Ingram. They're just kind of there, and they did crazy things that you'd say, "What the hell's he doing that for?"
Yeah. So I've got some of those older pre-Night of the Living Dead movies on our list for this year, as well
Oh,
as
you do? Okay.
yeah. So some other people are lined up to talk about those, but yeah, they're very different kind of
You
movie.
got other people.
I
You got other suckers other than me coming on your show.
It's 31 days, Billy. I gotta. Nobody but me has time to do all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you got other
But
people
yeah,
hosting it
you
too.
mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's mostly just me hosting it, just
Okay.
guests. But you mentioned the black lead. Yeah, the script was not written with a
Yeah.
black person in mind, but once he cast him, changes the dynamic of things. And yeah, I mean, apparently the guy just gave the best audition, and that's the reason uh you should cast somebody, because they gave the best audition. So it didn't matter that it wasn't written for a black person. It wasn't not written for a black person. But
Right. No, I agree. And he
particularly
killed
because
in
the
it too.
time it yeah, particularly because the time it was made, it just gives a different dynamic to the whole thing, particularly that ending. Did you rewatch this just before recording this, or have you
You
just seen
know,
it so many times you didn't need to?
no, I rewatched it again just to do. But before that, it's probably been about a year. I mean, I kind of revisit it
Okay.
once a year. It seems like.
I bring it up because I watched it on Max, formerly known as
Okay.
HBO. And they have a
Yeah.
restored version on there from some I forget what
Oh,
museum, but also, as you indicated, if they failed to put a copyright notice on it when they released it, so it immediately went into the public domain. So there are
yes.
numerous versions of it that you can find, and some of them are just look like crap, but the one they've got on HBO looks really good. So if you have that option, I would recommend watching that, because if you watch it on some other platform, who knows what the hell you're gonna get.
I did Peacock, and it was black and white.
Okay.
It didn't seem very good.
Yeah, there are some colorized versions out there. There's also, have you seen this thing, Night of the Animated Dead?
No, but I read a little bit about it. I was gonna actually, I was gonna look into it after I was researching today.
So I've only seen the trailer for it, and that's because it looks like crap, and I wasn't going to spend money on it. It's just
Yeah.
really weird. It's not really a remake. It's looks almost like they rotoscoped the original film, but it's got all new dialogue recorded. But it just seems to be, we took the original movie and we just animated it, because everybody's wearing the same costume. They're drawn to look like the original actors.
Oh, so it
but they
actually
did
is
get
animated.
it's animated, but it appears to be just not a new version, really, just the same
Hmm.
movie. They re-recorded the audio, but from the trailer it looks like it's just shot for shot. But the biggest issue is the animation looks like shit, and it's from
Oh.
Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers knows how to make cartoons. They
Yeah.
should know, there's no excuse for Warner Brothers putting out a badly animated anything. So I don't understand at all what
Yeah,
the
you
point
wouldn't
of this
think
thing
so.
was. If you're
Yeah,
gonna
I'm trying to think too.
animate it, why not do something new that you couldn't have done with the low budget of the original if you're animating it? But no,
Yeah.
it just looks like they just traced over the movie and recorded new
Well, you know what?
new
They probably
actors.
got a software that did it automatically or something. So maybe it's just a software that did that
Could
and
have been.
actually took the drawing. Remember that Aha video, Take on
Right,
Me?
but yeah.
Is that what it was like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not just sketches like in that, but it does
Yeah.
look, I mean, rotoscoping is a process where you basically draw over top of a picture or a film. And they probably can kind of do it automatically now. But it should
You're
have,
saying whatever was the minimal of doing, that's what they did. They phoned it in.
yeah, but it also just doesn't look smooth, because if you did it frame by frame, it would look nice and smooth, and this doesn't. It just looks like crap.
Well,
The
now you're
actual
selling it where
animation is not
I got to
good,
check
and
it
the
out and
drawings
see
don't
what's
look
going
bad.
on now.
Okay, well,
You know
I'm not
what though,
paying
Dom?
money for it.
I bet you they just had to try to make some money on it some way. They lost the rights on the other way. What can we do to make some money and advertise and do something like that? Maybe.
It
I
does
was
kind of
friends
seem
for a
like
while
it was
with.
somebody trying to reestablish,
Yeah, I know his
trying to
son George
reestablish a
Romero.
copyright.
Son is doing some stuff. I was friends with him a while back, but I haven't talked to him in a while. But I think he's continuing on the legacy and stuff too. I think and has been doing some stuff that his dad wrote or produced and is trying to get out. There's a film that his dad did that never seen the light of day or something.
Are you talking about Romero's son?
Romero's son, yeah.
Speaking of which, let's do a couple of stats here real quick. It was, of course, directed by George A. Romero, screenplay by John Russo and George A. Romero. Came out in 1968, year I was born. It's 96 minutes, depending on which version you're watching. The budget was somewhere between $114,000 and $125,000. The box office is an estimated $30,236,452. That's a very specific number for an estimate. But it never made as much as it should have because of the copyright fuck up. So copyright law is a little more forgiving these days. You used to have to register your copyright. And if you put out a film and did not put copyright right there in the titles, then it wasn't assumed to be copyrighted.
Yes.
These days, anything you write is assumed to be copyrighted as soon as you write it. And let's see, who is the cast? The cast is Dwayne Jones as Ben, Judith O'Dea as Barbara, coming to get you, Barbara. Carl Hardman as Harry Cooper, Marilyn Eastman as Helen Cooper, Kyra Shawn as Karen Cooper, Keith Wayne as Tom, Judith Ridley as Judy, Bill Heinzman played the first school, the one in the graveyard, George Kosana as Sheriff McClelland, he was also the production manager, and Billy Cardile as himself. He's the news guy. I was wondering, because I noticed in the credits when I was watching it now that he's the only one that had a nickname listed, but that's because he was well known in Pittsburgh as a TV presenter who hosted a horror film anthology series, Chiller Theater.
That's right. Yeah.
So he wasn't the news guy. Is he just on the TV before the news?
That I know of,
I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah, and they have a really bad, he's kind of in the newsroom is where he's coming from.
I see.
Well, unless he was the guy that was interviewing the sheriff.
Oh, possibly.
Yeah.
There was also
the thing with that sheriff, Dominic, that's a cliche thing they do in all the Dawn of the Dead movies now is you got to talk to the local town sheriff. And they're always putting, you know, zombies down and stuff. It's like a kind of a cliche thing to do now. But there'd be no Walking Dead without this because everything from the Walking Dead come from this movie.
Yeah. I was just another movie I was watching for this month's movies. Starts off with a car driving up to a cemetery. I'm not going to give away and say which one it was. And I'm like, this seems like this is probably meant to be a little bit of a reference.
Homage.
Maybe it's a coincidence, but it seems like it's on purpose to me. I got to tell you, Billy, the first time I saw this movie, I didn't really like it that much, except the ending.
When did you see
the ending.
How old were you?
I don't remember. I mean, I was a grown person. I wasn't a little kid. I think at the time I just found it to be really slow and kind of boring.
Yeah, it would be. But it would be today.
But I thought the ending was just so painfully ironic that it made the rest of it worth it. So when I watched the remake and they changed the ending, I was like, what the fuck? That was the best part. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But watching it again this week, I did appreciate it much more. I'm sure the quality of the print I was watching helped with that. And maybe some of the really bad movies I've seen recently also helped with it.
Yeah, but, there's a lot of those these days.
I was really just aware of their lack of budget and what they were managing to do without the budget and how some of the choices were probably because of that. And like this movie could almost be done as a stage play.
Yeah, you're right. It sure
most of it just takes place in this room. And there's a whole thing that Ben describes happening to him before he got there that he's describing because they don't have the budget to show it. These zombies were chasing this truck and overwhelming the truck. And I think it crashed and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, they didn't have the budget to show us that.
No.
But he's telling us about it. And the news guy tells us a lot of things that they don't have the budget to show. But even Barbara repeats everything that we saw happen to her. She tells Ben all of that. So you could leave that scene out and just if you wanted to do it as a stage play, which you could because it's in the public domain.
Yeah, you could.
You could leave that part out because Barbara's going to tell us what happened to her.
Anyway, you're right.
Really
So are you saying
appreciated
you want
all
to
of
do a
that this
stage play
time
of it?
around. I'm thinking about it. I think it could be done at the Globe really well
Who are you
with
gonna?
the built-in doors they have there. Well, I would direct it. I don't know if I could. If I were playing it, I'd have to play Harry, I think, who
The surly old
turns
guy
out,
that's always mean.
yeah. But
Yeah,
it turns
that's
out
you.
that he was right. Harry was right.
He was right. Yeah.
There's this whole thing. So we were talking about the racial dynamics of the film. Ben really takes charge and is telling everybody what to do, and he's
Mm-hmm.
ordering around all these white people. And you could interpret part of Harry's resistance as him being racist, but I think it's also just the way he is.
Right.
He doesn't want
Yeah.
anybody. He doesn't want anybody bossing him around, but he certainly doesn't want this younger black man bossing him around.
Yeah, tell him what
But
to do.
Ben
Right.
but Ben is just decisive. Barbara's catatonic. She's fucking useless.
Totally. Yeah, that was the only problem I had with everything. It's like, snap out of it, chick.
Yeah. But I mean, some people deal with stress better than others. Barbara clearly can't
Yeah.
deal with it. And but Harry and a couple other people have been holed up in the basement, and he wants to stay down there locked up. And Ben thinks they can defend themselves better upstairs. But it turns out that if they just locked themselves in the basement, they would
Waited for
only have had to
help.
stay there that night.
Yeah.
Help would
yeah.
have come in the morning and presumably come into the house and called out, and they could have said, "We're down here, we're alive," and everything would have
Yeah.
been fine.
Now,
Mostly
the two things
fine. I
is,
think, wouldn't the daughter
would-
still have
would
turned?
would he have gotten shot if he wasn't black?
Yeah, see, that's one of the things. That's just by casting him,
Yeah.
there is this implication that they weren't seeing him as human and weren't bothering to check if he was human. And also maybe
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he sees a group of good old boys with guns marching across the field, why he doesn't just stand up and wave his arms and say, "Hey, help over here." He is maybe distrusting of what he sees coming towards him as much as if they were zombies. And because it goes both ways. They're not seeing him as human, but he's maybe afraid to ask them for help until he's sure what's going on.
Yeah, it was almost a very an ironic thing. That's why that ending is so great the way it is. It's like an ironic twist of that, and it's way ahead of its time.
Yeah. It's much better than I had originally given it credit for.
All right.
And of course,
All
as
right.
you say, it's very
I win again. What did we
influential.
do last time? Did we watch The Greasy Strangler?
Yes.
Hey, you're welcome.
No, you lost on that one. That was bad. That was
That's
a
wonderful
nightmare.
movie.
I will curse your name forever for
Then
that one.
Then if it's so bad, how come it got picked up by the Hallmark Channel?
It did not get picked up by the Hallmark Channel.
But you don't know it, didn't?
That is a lie. That is a lie, sir.
What was
Have you ever
I
seen
something else, Dom?
Night of
Speaking
the
of
Living
that,
Bread?
Night of the Living Bread.
Yeah,
I've not
it's a
seen that.
little parody short film, but I think it was made. I think Romero made it, like when they were filming this.
Oh, it
It's
wouldn't be
just a little
surprised.
parody short. It's a little parody short film where people are being attacked by slices of bread. But what were you going to say?
I was going to say there's another film, and it ain't like there's just this new trailblazing of filmmakers, but there's one called Psycho Gore Man. Psycho Gore Man. Have you seen that one?
No, but it's on my list.
It's got so much heart, and I think it's wonderful. It feels very 80s. It could have come out in the 80s, but it's just great. I think it's great.
No, it's been on my list for a long time to watch. I just haven't.
You did now you love Turbo Kid, right?
Yes, I did.
And this
I
is
did.
Psycho Gorman's like that, but I guess a little cheesier 80s. But Turbo Kid is wonderful. That's a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I've always loved low budget 80s science fiction movies, and I thought there would never be any new ones. And then they made Turbo Kid.
I know, go figure, yeah.
And that's exactly what it's trying to be, and it succeeds.
Mhm.
I just
It
looked it up.
succeeds,
Night of the
yeah.
Living Bread is actually from 1990. It was made years later. It's not by Romero.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
just
it is
it's
Romero.
just a little short comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's by Kevin S. O'Brien.
Well, think about all the the inspiration that caused. How many parodies have you seen of this whole thing? From Thriller to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
of course, it's had many, many sequels and
Mm.
2 alternate universe timelines
Yeah.
with the Dead movies by Romero and the Living Dead movies by Russo. Yeah, basically every modern zombie movie would not exist without this film. So I definitely had it on my list, even though I didn't think I liked it, but it was on the list just because of how important it is.
Well, Dominic, it's to me is I give these what do you call it at the conventions, these panels about speaking to people that kind of want to get into
Right?
filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then I meet a lot of first time filmmakers that send me their stuff. And it's like I always question if their film is bad. I go, have you even watched like Night of the Living Dead? It's like, it covers every basis kind of. But theirs don't, as far as the technical stuff as, focusing, decent acting, micing somebody up or getting good audio and stuff. So it's like, I think it's very paramount for any, wannabe horror filmmaker to watch that one. It's got to be one of the top 10 essential viewing if you want to be a horror filmmaker, I think.
Yeah, Roger Ebert said a long time ago, and I don't know what movie he was talking about, but he was talking about the difference between vampire movies and zombie movies, and
Uh-huh.
that it's important to have an interesting vampire, but that zombies themselves are not interesting, so your characters
Right.
have to be interesting.
Yeah.
You can have boring in a vampire movie. It's very important that the vampire be interesting, but in a zombie movie, it's important that your victims be interesting because the zombies themselves, they don't have anything to say.
But
They're
Romero
not
changed
interesting.
that though because he in Day of the Dead, he had one of the zombies become the one called Bub become a character.
Yeah, but he still, doesn't, he doesn't have the kind of personality and motivation that a vampire would have. But
No, not at all. Right. Yeah.
yeah, but my point is that this movie, yeah, the zombies are just shambling things, but it's very much about these people that are trapped and their clash of
Mhm.
personalities and the plans that they come up with and what they're doing. And that's why it's better than maybe some other movies that maybe had more of a budget or even some other low budget things I've watched recently where they think that it's important to have a bunch of cool kills and a bunch of gory effects, but they've forgotten
Yeah.
to give us any characters to give a shit about. And that's I think always the most important thing.
No,
I got to
I
care
agree
about
with you
what's
too,
happening.
but
It doesn't matter how
you
cool it looks.
you can but see if I did that with just a great movie, the horror fans, you got to make them happy too and some of them just want the gore stuff. So it's like that's what I try to do is find a balance between that and the story and characters and hopefully you have a good horror movie. I think that's what makes me different
Yeah.
from most of the
I think if you're really doing horror, it's good to have both. But
Yes.
if you don't have the writing, if all you've got is a bunch of effects, then it's never going to be a truly great movie.
No, they'll just
And
love things about
just
it.
a number of things I've seen recently, all they cared about was the effects and they forgot to include a story.
Yep. No, you're right. I think it's more that way now than the other way.
In fact, the end of this movie, you know how it goes into still photos at the end before it goes back
Yes.
into motion?
Yes.
Do you think that was also a budget thing?
If it was a good, a happy accident because it really set a mood to me.
Right. But as I was watching it, I was like, wait, why is this happening? I realized 'cause what
Right,
they're doing,
right.
they've shot and killed Ben. And then they have these meat hooks that they're using to gather up the zombies with and put them
Yes.
on a pyre
In
and
the
burn
fire.
the bodies because that's
Yeah.
the only way you can be sure. And we see it switches from live to a bunch of still photos.
Yes.
And by doing this, they can show us that they have the meat hooks and they can show us what their intention is without having to figure out a way to do an effect of putting these meat hooks
Yeah.
into Ben's body and dragging him across the lawn and throwing him on the fire. So I think that was actually a very clever way to get around having to spend money doing some kind of effect, building some kind of convincing dummy
Mhm.
or some kind of rig to drag his real body or whatever. Because then we see them throwing the bodies. We see pictures of the bodies piled up, and then it cuts, and we see a picture of him lighting the torch, and then it cuts to him throwing the torch on the wood and it bursting into flame, but there's no
Yeah.
bodies that we can see.
Right. Well,
So
they would show it
I
all now.
think this was
I would
actually
say
just
time too.
yeah,
Money
yeah.
and yeah, they couldn't show that back then. That would have been crazy. But that was 68. In 73, they filmed Chainsaw
Yeah.
Massacre and put it out in 74. So shit was about to get bad, but even is Texas Chainsaw Massacre bad in comparison to the things out now? I don't think so.
I mean, if you want to hear our feelings on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can go back to our first 31 Days of Horror from 3 years ago and listen to that episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that in the archive? The Golden Archive?
Yes, they can find it at mmftg.com. Billy, thanks for joining me. Come out and see us if you're in the Odessa, Midland, Permian Basin area. Come out and see us at the Haunt this year. What are the dates for the haunted house this year, Billy?
I think it's like the last 2 weekends and then on Halloween. So just 5 nights this year.
And I'll put a link to that up, folks. But if you're in the area, you know where it is. It's on 2nd Street. You've been
know
there.
where it is.
You know where it is. Maybe you can even come in from out of town. People come from all around to come to this haunted house.
They come from all around to
Mr.
get down with the
Blisters, I think.
clowns.
And again, we'll put links to that Indiegogo in the show
Thanks,
notes.
buddy.
Thanks so much for joining me again, Billy. Thank you all for listening. Remember to keep calm and take shelter in basements. Please don't misuse science. We won't see you, but you will hear us next time on Monster Movie Fun Time Go. You've been listening to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. If you enjoyed the show, please consider rating and reviewing us on your podcasting platform of choice. You can leave us a message and find links to all our things at mmftg.com.